What's going on, everyone? Welcome to my video. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, this is normally not the type of video that I do, these informational type videos. Normally it's going to be like edits, normally it's going to be vlogs, that type of thing. So if you feel the urge to poke around on my channel, by all means do so. If you like what you see, feel free to go ahead and subscribe. You know, I would greatly appreciate it. Anything that could help my channel grow, I'm all for it. If you're on this video, you're on it for a very particular reason, and it's the topic of this video, which is what it is like to own, adopt, and is a Greyhound dog right for you. We're gonna get into a couple topics, the breed, we're gonna talk about the characteristics, the temperament of the breed, what the adoption process was like. I'm a couple of months into adoption already, so I can tell you a little bit about what it's like, what it's been like during the process of owning the dog. If you see me looking at my phone, it's because I have the notes about what I'm gonna say right there. First off, you know, a lot of people don't know about the breed. A lot of people, they associate the breed with racing, which is probably how most people are going to associate it. There's only about 5 states in the United States that have actually practicing and legal racetracks. 40 states have it outlawed, I believe it's 40. And the other ones, it's not outlawed, but it hasn't been practiced in years. While Greyhound racing in Texas and the United States is very heavily regulated now, I'm not necessarily for or against. I know a lot of people that I know, you know, in Australia and different parts of the world, they are very against Greyhound racing because of how they are treated in those parts of the world. If you've never been around a Greyhound race or a Greyhound track, chances are you've never seen one in person. So first off, it is the oldest dog breed in all existence. Far back as 4000 BC. That's one of the things that drew me toward the breed, was knowing that I would own a dog that had that type of lineage. My dog's name, I named her Nima, which is short for Nematep. And Nematep was an Egyptian queen, so I kind of used that lineage to find and create her name. So a little bit about the physical characteristics of the breed, which are very, very unique and specific, because the first thing, which is right here, is gonna be their narrow head and their long face. So their head in some parts is narrower than their neck, which is why they require a certain type of collar, because the collar on a traditional collar can just slip off, and then their nose comes to a point and it's very long, which is why they are sometimes nicknamed needle noses. Probably besides the neck and the head, their most distinguishing characteristic is going to be their muscular build and their really deep chest, muscular shoulders and hind legs. They come in a variety of different colors. I believe there might be only 15 that are recognized as breed standard by the AKC. You can get a Greyhound in literally any color that you would like. I think, to be honest, that might be one of the coolest things about owning a Greyhound, is how unique they look on the outside. Whether I go to Petco, PetSmart, whether I go to the dog park, whether I'm just walking the dog outside of my apartment, she and I get stopped all the time, and the first question that's always asked for the most part is that a Greyhound? It seems like a very simple question, and you feel like it would be like, what do you mean, is that a Greyhound? When you think about how few people have actually seen a Greyhound, they only know about the dog because of the side of the bus. You know, other than that, there's gonna be a lot of questions asked, which is kind of cool. You're kind of educating the public as you just walk your dog. Let's go ahead and get into the second portion of the breed profile, which is an important portion for any dog, and that's gonna be the dog's temperament. But the temperament of a Greyhound is a lot more laid back than most people assume. You know, they run so fast that people think that they're hyper, they think that they need a lot of energy, they think that they need a lot of exercise. Literally the exact opposite. They're extremely calm animals, and they are very independent animals. If you're looking for a dog that you want to be obedient, that you want to do obedience training, you know, you want to be able to train like a German Shepherd or Labrador Retriever, that type of thing, the Greyhound is going to be one of the hardest dogs to make obedient. My dog right there, she knows her name. I know she knows her name. She listens all the time, except for when she doesn't want to. She is one of the most stubborn dogs if she doesn't want to listen to you. There's been times where I've called her name, she stops what she's doing, looks at me dead in the eye, and then walks away and does what she was doing to begin with. And you kind of have to take that as a humorous side of Greyhounds. You know, you kind of have to accept that they're their own dog and they do what they want when they want. Second, they're quiet dogs. They very rarely bark. I think I've heard her bark maybe 4 times in the last 4 or 5 months. The only times I've heard her bark, 3 of those were probably because male dogs had tried to mount her, and she had to let them know what's up. I'm not no bitch out here that's gonna be, you ain't trying to play me, dog. You ain't playing me like that. But that's the only time. She's never barked at me. That's a good thing for me. I'm not a big fan of dogs that bark. So third, these dogs are often considered extremely lazy, and that is by no means a myth. Nima here can sleep for, I would say, probably about 20 hours out of the 24 hours in the day. I'm about to show you a video. It's a time lapse of when I was gone to work for 8 hours and she did not move a single time other than to turn in her bed a couple of times from the moment that I left and the moment that I got back. So here it is. How do you not move? How do you not do anything all day? If you're looking for someone, a dog that's quiet, a dog that's independent, a dog that that kind of does that does their own thing, but they're there when you want them to be there, this Greyhound is perfect. So next, let's go over some pros and cons, or is it pros and cons? So a pro, and this is just my personal pros and cons list. They're amazing with kids. She's been around kids. I've seen other dogs been around kids. As long as the kid is gentle, they're going to be extremely gentle. They're very therapeutic dogs. A lot of people use them as ESA, I forgot what I said, emotional support dogs. Another pro, they're great for indoor, moving around furniture, moving around tight spaces. If you're adopting straight off of a racetrack, or if you're adopting dogs that are being trained to be raced, maybe they didn't make it to a racetrack. Nima here didn't ever see a single race. She doesn't exactly have the prey drive to race. They're kennel trained right out of the gate. There's no kennel training that's required. They know the kennel, they're comfortable in the kennel. If they act like they don't want to go in the kennel, it's only because they just don't want to be in there. Another pro, in my opinion, is they have very fun, quirky personalities. They sleep in weird positions. They sleep in a roach style with all 4 of their legs up. Pro for sure. Easy grooming, easy to exercise. The grooming is grooming. The grooming, you just give them a bath once a week, once every 2 weeks, you're good to go. They shed very little during the summer, but they're almost bald in certain spots of their body, so it's not a whole lot of grooming. Exercise portion though, they don't need a lot of exercise whatsoever. Daily walk and maybe sprint once or twice a week. That's it. And the sprinting is maybe 2 or 3 sprints and they're dead. She sprinted for 10 minutes today, she's still asleep. And that was maybe 4 or 5 hours ago. And then there's some cons, like with every dog breed. Most Greyhounds have a pretty strong prey drive. Not every Grey has it, but the Greys that do, they might not be able to live in households that have smaller animals like cats or small dogs or Yorkshire Terriers, that type of thing. That's not a bad thing, it just kind of limits the type of dog you can get. I had to find a dog that was cat acceptable, which Nima is. And the Greyhound agency, whoever you adopt from, will do all that research for you on what dog is and is not acceptable. So they're gonna do that research to make sure that you get a dog that you're comfortable with that can stay in your home. They can rarely be off leash. If you want a dog that's able to be off leash and comes back on command and what have you, it's rare that a Greyhound can do that. I got lucky with Nima and she can be off leash pretty much all the time. She listens to her name, she knows when she's going too far. Most Greyhounds, if they get off leash and they see something that they want to attack or chase, they'll just be in the zone and there's no coming back from it. The chances of you catching a dog that can run 43 miles an hour, probably not good odds in your favor of catching them. They have very sensitive stomachs, a lot of them, so they have to have certain type of food. They have to have high quality food. I probably pay for a big bag of her food, I probably pay around $60 for her food for the biggest bag possible of Hill's Science Diet. Really the last one that I can think of as a con, separation anxiety. These dogs have been around people, they've been around other dogs since the moment they were born. They're in huge farms, dozens if not hundreds of dogs at a time, playing together, running, training for racing. They're around handlers all the time. It's a very shocking experience for them to go into a single household, especially if they're the only dog, and then you're gone for maybe 6 to 8 hours a day. It does take a while for them to get used to being alone. Just something you have to be extremely patient with. Most dogs, they might be able to get used to it quickly, but not racing or retired racer Greyhounds. They've never been alone their entire life. Who are Greyhounds right for? I would say pretty much everybody. They're great for apartment renters. They are probably the perfect dog for apartments. They're lazy. It's not like they're gonna be causing a ruckus in the apartment 24/7, or if you live on the 2nd story, you're not going to be causing your downstairs neighbor to be annoyed by you because you're jumping around on all the furniture, that kind of thing. But they're also not small dogs. I like dogs that have size. I'd rather have a cat than I would a small dog, which is why I got the cat first. They have a lazy demeanor, they're graceful in movements, they won't cause a lot of attention, they don't attract a lot of negative attention. They do attract attention, but it's rare you're going to get somebody to say, get that dog out of here. I've been to Target, which is known to be not dog friendly, and no one ever told me anything. If anything, they've come up to me and wanted to know about the dog. They wanted to pet her. That's what you can expect as a Greyhound owner. You're not going to get a lot of hesitation towards your dog. A Greyhound is right for someone who has a quiet household. They're quiet dogs. They don't require a lot of activity. They just lay around all day. They're lazy. So quiet households are perfect. Active households are perfect as well because the dog won't be in your way when your household's active. She or he will just be laying there, especially once she or he gets used to you as a family, used to you as an owner. They're just gonna lay there. They're not gonna do anything too crazy with you. They might get hyper with you, which you will be excited about because it's a rare situation when that'll happen. They're perfect for people who are wanting to adopt but are skeptical about going to adoption shelters. Not that there's anything wrong with going to an adoption shelter at all. A couple of my dogs have been from adoption shelters, but the background of the dog can vary greatly. You know, you might get a dog with a lot of hesitation toward humans. You might not know just from that little quick visit with them. Getting a dog off of the racetrack or getting a dog off of the farm that was just immediately retired because they weren't fast enough or big enough. Their past and their history is pretty well known. It's pretty well documented on how these dogs are brought up. Adoption agencies, they're very meticulous with learning about the dog. They go to foster homes before they can be adopted to you, so you can't just go straight to the adoption agency. It has to go into a foster home before it can come to you. And you're adopting a purebred dog. You know, a lot of people, they want purebred dogs. They don't want to pay the price for a purebred dog. They're not comfortable with purchasing dogs when there's dogs out here that are available for adoption. Best of both worlds. You get the purebred. It's not $1,000 to adopt a dog. Her total from Austin Greyhound Adoption was $350 with the application fee, and you're adopting from legitimate, compassionate agencies. They're not backyard breeders. There's no tendency toward, overbreeding or anything like that. These dogs are in tip-top shape. They're one of the most healthy dog breeds that you can purchase or own because of the legitimacy of the breed over time. There's been, like I said previously, there's been no genetic changes. There's been no genetic manipulation to create the breed. The breed's been in existence for over 6,000 years, and that means that they have a very healthy bloodline. And then another type of person that the Greyhound is right for, or the Greyhound is good for, is going to be the person who values a community. If you go on Instagram, which Nima does have an Instagram, by the way, Nima the Greyhound. I'll leave it in the link in the description, so if you want to follow, by all means feel free. It's a very tight-knit community from what I've gathered in making her Instagram. And for myself personally, the adoption process was extremely good. I went through GALT first, which was Greyhound Adoption League of Texas. They're probably the biggest Greyhound adoption agency in the state. They had an extremely good system in place, but they just didn't have a dog that was cat friendly, so unfortunately I couldn't go through them. And then I ran across Austin Greyhound Adoption. They were not as big, but the adoption process was flawless. With both, it was going to be almost exactly the same. You do the adoption paperwork, you send in the application fee with your references, and they have a phone interview. Why do you want to adopt a Greyhound? What's drawing you to the breed? What type of household do you have? That type of situation. And it's not an interrogation whatsoever. It's very friendly, and it's just to make sure that this dog is right for you and is not going to be, returned or put in a dire situation or what have you. Then after that, there's an in-person interview. Somebody came to my apartment to take a look to see if this was an appropriate space for a dog, especially an apartment. You have to be able to run it. You have to have a field that's available. How long are you going to be gone? All of these situations. You go to a meet and greet. It's mandatory that you meet these dogs in person before you just select one off of the internet because you like the picture. You have a couple of overnight visits to make sure that this is what you thought it was going to be, and if it is, they finalize the paperwork with a contract. She came microchip, neutered, flea medication, heartworm medication for the first month. She actually was not free of worms. She had hookworm, which was very common when I adopted her. Called them, I let them know, hey, she does have hookworm after that initial vet visit. They said, all right, just get her free of hookworms, send us the vet bills, and we'll send you the check. Took 2 rounds of hookworm medication. They pay for both rounds, fecal examinations, and the initial pet visit. They ask for pictures all the time. They encourage you to go to meet and greets. They encourage you to meet other Greyhound owners. It's almost like you're part of a family owning a Greyhound. And it's a good experience to be a part of. I hope this video shed a little bit of light on what it's like to own a Greyhound. Pretty much the best experience that I've ever had in terms of owning an animal on my own right. We've had family animals. Like I said, I have a dog at my dad's, but the alpha male of that dog is more my dad, not so myself, so that's more of a family dog. I have a small apartment. It's just me. It's just my cat. It's just Nima. She's very friendly with anybody who comes and visits. She's very friendly at the dog park. She doesn't bark at anybody. She doesn't run up on anybody and scare them, anything like that. Very polite, very mannered. She's excited to see me every time I come home. She actually howls, because I have a camera. She howls when I leave for like 30 seconds, and then she lays down and doesn't do anything all day. I'll actually leave my email right here. So if you have any questions about it and you want to ask me, Feel free to email me. I'll try to help you find an adoption agency in your area. If you're not in my area, if you're other parts of the United States, I'll try to help you find an adoption agency if this is a route that you're planning on going. Follow Nima's page, and then you can see how many people comment on her pictures, how many other dog pages comment, how many dog pages follow her, how many dogs there are. It's just a rewarding experience to be able to adopt a dog. Thank y'all guys for joining. If y'all watched this long, thank you for that for sure. I do know this ran a little bit longer than I initially anticipated. Take a look at the rest of the channel. But yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up.
My last girl would tear me apart, but she never wanna split a ting with me. But when it comes to you